And we'll get going. So, hello everyone, and welcome tonight. We have our guest speaker, Stephanie, on here. So, I had the privilege of meeting her in person earlier this year, and I got to learn a lot just in the brief moments that I was with her. She's awesome, and if you go and look at her page, she has a ton of awesome testimonials. So, definitely go check her out. So just a little bit about her. She's the founder of Vitality OET. You might be able to put this in your entire spiel, but I want to give a little bit about you. Expert in nutrition, hormones, perimenopause, and menopause. And you've been doing this for how many years now?
Officially, the business has been around for almost 4 years now, but I've been doing the whole coaching thing since 2011, which is a very long time.
Yes, absolutely. So she knows what she's talking about, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say, and I'm ready to learn, and I hope that you guys are too. So Stephanie, if you're ready, you can go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so I always like to kind of start off talking a little bit about hormones, because obviously perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, that's the big thing that changes, right? And a lot of people are like, man, I haven't changed anything, and all of a sudden I'm gaining weight, or my old fat loss strategies aren't working anymore. And everyone likes to start blaming estrogen. And the thing is about estrogen is like, yes, absolutely is going to influence our bodies so much. It affects literally every system. But estrogen is kind of like mom, is how I like to call her. She is doing dishes and meal planning and doing the laundry and taking the dog out for a walk and making sure kids get to where they need to be and keeps the house kind of in order, right? And so then when estrogen or mom gets sick or estrogen starts to decline, the house starts to fall apart. All of a sudden, laundry is piling up. There's dog fur everywhere. There's food rotting in the fridge. There's dishes piling up in the sink. And is it mom's fault that everything's falling apart? Or is it that the whole household hasn't really been working together for a long time? She's been covering the slack. And now it's very apparent when, estrogen goes down. And so what we see is this is typically what's happening. So when estrogen starts to decline, it makes it so that inflammation goes up a lot higher. So if we were already battling with inflammation that she was dealing with, now it becomes this thing that becomes very amplified. Our blood sugars get worse. So all of a sudden now we're insulin resistant, which we never used to be. And it's because, all the habits and things we've been doing for a long time haven't been serving us blood sugar wise. Estrogen was kind of masking it, taking care of it. And now we're insulin resistant when it starts to decline. We start losing our muscle mass, our sleep gets worse, our energy gets worse, our thyroid function starts to slow down. We have all these things that start to happen, but she was holding the pieces together. It's kind of like the MVP of the team. When they get traded off, the franchise goes to crap. Is it the MVP's fault, or did the coach not do a good job of training everyone as a team to work together? That's typically what I like to see. Estrogen's almost like, look at everything I've been dealing with for the last 30 years. I'm done here. Good luck. I'm done picking up the pieces. And so this really just amplifies what's already been happening under the surface, making things like weight loss a lot more challenging. We start having all these symptoms. We also see a lot of people go into, perimenopause and menopause so much earlier than we used to be because of all the things that are, causing estrogen to decline more quickly. And a lot of this has to do with stress. And so what we see is when we have like this stress bucket, I like to call it. And so imagine you have this nice big bucket that can handle all the stress. And stress counts as under eating, over exercising, past dieting, fasting, eating low carb, waking up early to get to the gym and sacrificing our sleep. We're go, go, go. We're dealing with deadlines and trauma and grief and taking care of parents and kids and being a great wife and dealing with bills and all the things. So that bucket gets filled pretty quick, but as long as it doesn't overflow, we're good. If it starts to overflow, all of a sudden now we see hormone production starts to slow down. We start to see our blood sugar gets worse. We start to see that our thyroid function slows down. Our body gets worse at burning calories. It gets worse at taking food and turning it into fuel and instead stores it as fat. Our energy gets worse. Our liver detoxification gets worse. Our bloating and digestion gets worse. Our muscle mass starts to go down. And so that happens every time that bucket overflows. And so what happens is most of us are living at this baseline of like one more drop in the bucket and it's like she's tipping over. But when our hormones start to decline, estrogen and progesterone start to go down, that bucket now gets smaller. So you didn't change anything that you were doing, but internally what your capacity is has now changed. And so now the bucket's overflowing. And so when we have the inflammation, the declining hormones and all the things I just talked about, we will gain weight. It blocks our fat burning pathway. It pushes us into the storage state, making it much harder to lose weight. And so now we start panicking because we're like, oh my gosh, the things that I used to do aren't working anymore, or you're dropping your calories now, all of a sudden now you're gaining weight, and it's this whole thing, right? And so we push harder. We start cutting calories more. We start exercising more. We start stressing because of the scale, right? And so then what happens is we basically just turn on this fire hose on this poor little bucket that's already overflowing, and it just makes it impossible to gain weight. And so what we actually have to do is, one, turn down the fire hose. That's step number one. Number two, can we make that bucket a little bit bigger? And number three, can we empty out that bucket so we have room to add the stress of, going into a fat loss phase? And so there's a lot of things that contribute to what's going into the bucket. How do we empty the bucket? How do we make the bucket bigger? And unfortunately, during perimenopause and menopause, our sensitivity to stress goes up a lot more. Before it would take a 9 out of 10 before cortisol would go up and do all this crazy stuff. Now it's only a 5 out of 10, which is frustrating because we're like, I used to be super mom. I could do everything. I could handle it all. And now all of a sudden, someone says one mean thing and it's the end of the world, and I'm having a meltdown and I can't think straight and I'm having hot flashes and I'm not sleeping, and it's this whole thing. And so what we do traditionally to try and lose weight typically makes things worse. Then we have to add on top of that we've dieted a bajillion times. The average woman diets like 3 times a year since they're like in their teens. So by the time we're in menopause, perimenopause, that adds up. We've also gone through a ton of hormonal chaos of puberty to maybe a few good years-ish. If our periods were nice, for most people, they're not. Then pregnancy and postpartum and pregnancy and postpartum. And so we've been on this crazy roller coaster, add in the dieting in there, which slows metabolism. So our metabolism, our maintenance calories are now lower from all the dieting that we did. We have nowhere to go. We have nowhere to go. So we have to heal internally what's happening so we have room to add that stress to the bucket. And so again, it's not that menopause is the problem. It just really amplifies and exposes what's already been going on under the surface. And unfortunately, when we're in our late 30s, our 40s, our 50s, our 60s, life doesn't get easier. Now we're worried about our kids. We're worried about grandkids. We're worried about finances and retirement. And we're also, dealing with sick and dying parents and the grief that comes with that. And then it's not just them passing now. You got to deal with the wills and the houses and all the things, or you have sick parents in the hospital all the time, or your kids are doing things that you don't agree with, right? You're becoming empty nesters. Life doesn't get easier. And so we actually end up being in this peak stress in our life where we're just always taking care of everybody else. And so it's just massively amplified. Plus, people can get a hold of us everywhere, all of the time, right? Where, work just texts me all the time. You can always be working. They can always get a hold of us. Think back to parents, grandparents, you had to be at home by a wired phone in order for someone to get a hold of you, right? You had to have dial-up internet where I remember sitting there and waiting for it to turn on or to get emails, right? And so it's such a different, highly stimulating life that we were never meant to be in. And so it takes so much more proactive of realizing what's actually going into that bucket and what's turning on that nozzle, because it's a lot and we don't even realize it. And half the time we're like, but I don't feel stressed. It used to be worse. I can handle it. I like my job. Me too, but my Oura ring, even after this call, after I podcast, after I go to events, high stress, because stress is when we're on, when there's a demand on our body. So if you're a nurse, a teacher, a mom, right? You're always giving, there's always demand on you. You're always giving. And so our body is going to experience stress, especially if we're not eating enough, especially if we're doing crazy workouts. And so it's really understanding this balance of how do I get my body to a place where this bucket is no longer overflowing? so that I am able to add that stress to be able to go into fat loss. But most of us are just, pouring the water in like nobody's business. And so that's always the spiel that I like to kind of give. I know it's a lot to kind of wrap your head around, but I always like to start there because it gives you a better idea as to like, oh, that explains why I'm struggling so much, right? And this is where we can tie in the HRT. There was lots of questions that people were asking about HRT, doing it, how does it affect your body? HRT is great. There's tons of positive benefits to HRT, right? We know it's cardioprotective. It helps protect our bones. It can help us with sleep, which is really important because just one night of poor sleep makes you 25% more insulin resistant the next day. So if we're chronically sleep deprived, blood sugar is everywhere and it has something to do with carbs. It has all to do with your sleep. And so there's tons of benefits to HRT. But the thing is your body able to absorb it? Can it break it down? Can it use it? And can it get rid of it? Because you hear all these stories of like, you go on HRT and you feel worse. And it's because your body literally cannot absorb and break it down and get rid of it, which causes a lot more inflammation in your body, causes more bloating, more fluid retention, blocks your fat burning pathways, and makes you feel worse. So we have to make sure that internal environment in your body is set up to be able to accept HRT so you can actually experience the benefits from it because a lot of people do struggle with that. The other thing about HRT is, it's not going to cause weight loss. HRT doesn't all of a sudden make your body better at burning calories. It doesn't all of a sudden, take you for a walk, lift the weights to grow muscle, help you choose to put veggies in your mouth, right? You still have to do the other things, but it can make it easier. So if you're not struggling with brain fog and poor energy, it's a lot easier to do the things that you want, right? So HRT is incredibly beneficial. Again, if your body's in a place where it can accept it. And so this is where, getting your body into a better position by eating the right way and doing the stress management, prioritizing your sleep, all of those things can really help you get the benefit from it. Liver support is like a really big one that tends to get overlooked with this one, but that's a whole other topic. And like testosterone, I know, was another one that was a big question. I cannot tell you how many women we see with low testosterone. And low testosterone is an issue because you'll become more insulin resistant. It's a lot harder to build and maintain muscle mass. We know testosterone helps you with your dopamine, your serotonin, your mood, being motivated. So if you're not motivated, how easy is it to stay at home and watch Love is Blind? I don't know if you guys are watching it. I'm obsessed. I'm so excited to watch the new episodes that just came out. But it's a lot easier when you're not feeling motivated and you're not in a good mood to just sit and, have some ice cream, maybe 2 bowls while you're watching that, judging everybody else. Instead of, I'm going to go for a walk or I'm going to have a salad. Like the way that you feel, unfortunately, is going to have a massive influence on the choices that you make. And a lot of people like to be like, no, it's just willpower. Nah, like testosterone and your hormones do have a large influence on this. And so you have to, make that connection a little bit there. Also, it's going to help you with like your libido and stuff like that too. Like it helps with your relationships that way. Like hormones and hormone therapy do play a big role in your health, the way you show up, your quality of life. Again, if your body can use it. I don't love testosterone pellets though, I will be completely honest, because you're stuck with it. So if the dosage isn't right, you're kind of hooped until it's time to get it replaced. And typically people will feel pretty good the first time and you never really get that same as great of a feeling again. So I don't love pellets for that reason. I typically advise against it. If you can do another form of HRT, that's what I recommend. And again, there's lots of things that you can look at. Even if you are, starting to experience some symptoms, I always say start with progesterone first. That's the thing that declines first when you're going through perimenopause and menopause. See how you feel. There's a lot of practitioners that are starting women off at 200 milligrams. That's a lot. Try at the lower dose, slowly titrate up if you need to based on how you're feeling, but we want to go for the lowest minimum effective dose. Then add an estrogen as needed. If you had a hysterectomy, they'll usually only give you estrogen because they're like, oh, progesterone helps with your uterine lining and you don't have a uterus anymore, so you don't need it. But progesterone affects so many areas in our body that we want to have the benefits from that. So yes, you might not have a uterus, but you still have a brain and you have brain fog and stuff, right? Like you still want to benefit from that. And we don't want to make you estrogen dominant, because then that can lead to other symptoms that we don't like to, like the PMS and, like the tender breasts and bloating, things like that we don't want. And so I like to say, start with progesterone first if you can, see how your body responds, add an estrogen as needed. Obviously, you got to find a practitioner that'll work with you on that, because sometimes it can be very tricky. And getting regular testing, I always like to say, is great too. So you can kind of see where you are and how you're feeling based on where you're at, because everyone's going to be a little bit different on where they feel best. And so that can help you in the future as well too, right? So, and sometimes you can find as you improve like your health and things like that, you can adjust the dose too, because your body is going to receive it and be able to utilize it better too. So sometimes we have people who actually end up having to decrease their HRT as they go through the process, because they are starting to, their body can actually utilize it better too, which is great. So it's a very personalized approach. It just sucks that there isn't a ton of practitioners necessarily that are always the best at that, or like listening to you. So you do have to advocate for yourself a little bit more, which sucks. But if you find a good one, hold on to them, refer them to people, because they're hard to find, it seems. So those are like the biggest questions I think I had seen. The other question too, supplements, the ones that people think like you need the most. And so I'm very like, try to get everything through food and activity as best as, or food and naturally as best as you can. But there are a few that we recommend for the majority of women. Magnesium is first and foremost number one. You become so depleted of magnesium when you are going through hormonal changes. If you are stressed, magnesium is so important for sleep, for bringing cortisol down. But if your cortisol is high, it also depletes you of magnesium. So taking magnesium at nighttime, 400 milligrams, is great, supportive of hormone production as well. There's a ton of benefits of magnesium, very safe to take. So I like magnesium glycinate. We also recommend B vitamins. They're notoriously harder to absorb from digestion, like from your food. And it's key for progesterone production. It's key for other hormones, really good for energy. So take it in the morning, don't take it at nighttime, because it can actually keep you up. And it also helps support detoxification as well, which is really important. Creatine is like the safest supplement. It is so good for you. It is great for blood sugar support, helps produce energy, supports your brain. There's so much research around creatine in your brain, promotes your muscle mass, which is what most people think about, helps with mitochondrial function, which means your body is better at taking food and turning it into fuel instead of storing it as fat, supports your bone health. Like there's so many benefits to creatine. So that's one that I highly recommend for women to take for sure. Be mindful of ones that have a ton of fillers. I go through Legion and use their unflavored one, and it actually is unflavored. You can put it with water and it doesn't taste like anything. And there's like minimum fillers in there. It's like very clean, very pure. I love their research team. They work with Bill Campbell, who is fantastic, and I love him. And so I really trust their products. You can also take aminos. So I like Kion aminos personally. I can send you guys our supplement guide too that has all this stuff in like dosages. But I like them. They're the building blocks for muscle mass. They are great for your brain. They are essential for detoxification. And so they're really great that you can take too. I also like it because they come in a powder, so you can mix it with water, because I suck at drinking water. So any way that I can like force myself to drink more water is always good. And then I also typically recommend omega-3s grams a day, because it's just hard to get in our everyday diet. And it's great for brain health, joint health, eye health, bringing that inflammation down, your stress response. And so all of these things will really help support the areas that kind of start to lag when our estrogen and progesterone go down. So I feel like I just threw up on everybody verbally. So please ask questions of whatever you want me to cover, talk about. And again, I can also like send you guys podcasts on specific topics and stuff too, because I have pretty much a podcast for every topic too, because there's just so much to know and I love it so much.
There is. Thank you so much for all of that, Stephanie. I know that like I have a lot that I wrote down and I'm going to be going over a ton, but Arian, I saw your hand raised first. And then I have a question after you. No one else wants to go before me, but Arian, the floor is yours.
So thank you, Stephanie, for joining us and walking us through this.
Yes.
We greatly appreciate it. So you say that estrogen and progesterone should be the first two that somebody targets to be able to find opportunities, but I cannot have estrogen or progesterone due to cancer. So is there what would be the next after you go past those two? What would be the other options? Is my only other option then testosterone?
Yes, and like what I would say is if you can find a practitioner who will also review a Dutch test, like that is great. It's hard because you have to have additional training in it, and like doctors don't really love preventative medicine, as we as you guys probably know. Because you could also take like DHEA, like you could take things that there's like precursors for stuff, right, to be made. But the big thing with like surgical menopause, chemical induced menopause, is the thing that we want to do is just really make sure that we're proactive about the systems that are affected when estrogen goes down. So we have lots of clients who've had breast cancer and can't be on HRT. And so the big things that we really like to push home, like testosterone honestly is really great, especially for the muscle protection. Like, so getting tested, seeing how you feel there, or where your levels are at to see if you're a candidate for that is always great. And then, so testosterone is always good there, but being proactive on muscle mass and like your bone health. So doing like, impact exercise, things like that. So being proactive on that. Heart health is going to be a big one too. And just inflammation in general, like we're just going to have to watch that a lot more. So I would say, make sure you're getting like blood work every year. So you can see things like, how is your blood sugar doing? How is your CRP doing? For like inflammation type stuffs, because we want to see how it's progressing over time so we can catch it before it gets to a certain point, right? We can be proactive about it, just because we know when those hormones are in a depleted state, it is more likely we're going to have that inflammation. You're more likely to experience, cardiovascular disease or diabetes and things like that, just because we don't have that protective effect of estrogen. And so it's just unfortunately having to be a little bit more proactive. But one of the best things that you could ever do, especially as a cancer survivor, is the stress management piece. Because we know that like cortisol impacts literally every system in our body. Like it will drive up inflammation like crazy, which makes it very hard to get into like what we call our fat burning pathway. But that fat burning pathway isn't just about burning fat. It's about being able to have cellular cleanup. So if we can't get into that state, it's very hard for us to clean up those dead cells, which obviously we want to make sure that we're getting rid of, even if we didn't have cancer. But if we did, like that's even more of a concern, right? We want to make sure our body can cleanse and get rid of all of that stuff. And so being very proactive on the inflammatory side, we know stress will drive up inflammation very quickly. And so this is where taking that extra time to like have the boundaries to say no, prioritizing your sleep, doing things that actively bring your heart rate and breathing rate down. Like people don't realize how big an impact it can be of literally before you go have lunch, when you're at work or whatever, take 2 minutes and just like really focus on slowing down your heart rate and breathing rate, because we're so up here all of the time where we have to actively be mindful. And like honestly doing that a couple times a day to get our body to come back down does wonders for inflammation, stress, blood sugar. Like on my Aura ring, I'll actually lay on the floor and put my feet up on the wall, because that helps bring your heart rate and breathing rate down very quickly, your blood pressure down as well. Also brings blood flow to your gut to help you with digestion, which is awesome. So if you're someone who bloats throughout the day, that's a great tool that you can use too. Doing that for like 5 minutes. Those little things, like it shows on my Aura ring so quick. It's like 5 minutes and my stress response is like back to the restorative state, because I live up here too. Like that's that's how I am, right? Just go all the time. There's always stuff that you can be doing, right? And then also spending time being creative, because if you think about it, if we are running away from a bear, fighting a bear, our brain is not allowing us to be creative. It is like, we need to survive. What's our best odds of survival? This is what we're doing, kind of thing. And so if we take time to just do like cross stitch or knitting or reading or singing our favorite songs or whatever that might be. I bought a paint by numbers and did that the other day. And I was like, oh, this is so fun. I haven't done anything like this in a long time. But it forces your body to go into that like rest and digest, relax type state, because we literally cannot be creative unless we get there. And so doing things like that can actually really help with just our nervous system and just hormonally, and be preventative for, the things that we can see have increased risk when we don't have those hormones. And so it's things that are a little unconventional that people don't really realize can make a big difference. And of course, trying to have an anti-inflammatory diet as best as you can to help with inflammation. But like the stress inflammation piece is very, very big to focus on. And then of course, building muscle mass and bone is big too. But
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, Arian. Okay, so Stephanie, one thing that I wanted to ask is around the insulin. And can you just kind of go into why insulin resistance and why insulin is such a big factor for everyone? Because sometimes I know a lot of people are like, why is this even important?
Yeah. So I actually did a podcast not that long ago where I talked about the difference of like your A1C reading versus like a blood prick reading versus your CGM. So I won't get into the nitty gritty of that, but insulin resistance. Okay. So I'll start from, everyone thinks it's like carbs and food that are ruining our insulin resistance. It's not. It's stress and lack of sleep 97% of the time. Like I've worked with thousands of women now. There has been 2 women ever that carbs have been like, oh yeah, this is the problem because we're having like donuts and chips and stuff all the time. And so that's not what I typically see. I see people who are honestly like, they have a fairly healthy-ish lifestyle, and it's the stress and lack of sleep. So, and chronic dieting and fasting. So what happens is if we are in a stress state, or, there's demand on our body because we're presenting or working or whatever it might be, or our body is stressed because we're not eating enough food and have a good night's sleep, whatever it might be, our body goes, I need energy. And so then cortisol goes up and tells your liver, hey, we need energy to do whatever it is we need to do. Even if you're just sitting at your desk, pissed off at Joe at work, doesn't matter, right? Your body goes, oh, I'm stressed. And so it goes, I need energy, tells your liver to dump sugar into your bloodstream, even though you're not eating, even though you're not having carbs, even though you're eating low calorie, even though you're doing all the workouts, doesn't matter. Your body goes, we need energy, liver dumps sugar into your bloodstream. So then sugar in the bloodstream obviously brings our blood sugar up. Insulin is like the Uber Eats guy. He's like, hey, gotta deliver the sugar to the house, to your cells. And so it comes, it grabs the sugar, knocks on the door opens, deliver Uber Eats, and you're good to go. But what happens is, okay, then our blood sugar goes down. If we're still not eating enough, if we are, fasting and skipping meals or another high stress situation, our body goes, we need more energy. And so the cycle just keeps happening. And so this happens in the absence of enough energy. You're fasting, you're not eating enough food, you're avoiding your carbs, whatever it might be. And so over time, this Uber Eats guy just keeps going and going and going. And eventually you're so sick of hearing the Uber Eats guy show up at your door that like the knocking is just like white noise at this point. You're just like, I'm not answering the door. I'm not getting up again. I'm not doing it. And so then he's like, okay, this person's not answering the door. I have to deliver this stupid meal, calls his friends. And so more insulin starts knocking on the door until the cells open. But now you have such a huge, massive amount of insulin in your bloodstream that now we have this blood sugar crash. And then the cycle repeats again, or you get that craving, you're super tired, you get the shakes, you get hangry, those kinds of things. And so what happens is your cells are not as responsive to insulin. So we're seeing sugar stay in our bloodstream longer. And when sugar and food stays in our bloodstream longer, we see more inflammation. And so our body, if it's not getting into our cells, to our mitochondria, which you might remember are like the powerhouse of the cells, they are responsible for taking food and turning it into energy so that we have energy and it doesn't get stored as fat. So the longer that it takes for the sugar to get into the cell, A, you're going to be more tired, and B, the more likely it gets shuttled to fat because your body's like, we need to get rid of this. Like, it's not good for us to have all this sugar in our bloodstream because it also dries up inflammation, which also damages our mitochondria. So now we're having an even harder time converting that food into energy because now we're seeing more damage. And so this driving up of inflammation is going to block that fat burning pathway, making it very hard for you to lose weight. It pushes you into this growth and storage pathway, And when that happens, inflammation is rampant. We're seeing fat gain like crazy. Our energy is not stable. It can lead to other chronic conditions. It's not a place that we want to be. And it's also very hard to build muscle mass if we're in this like constantly high inflamed state. It's also exhausting because if you think about it, when we're inflamed, it's like your body's on defense mode. It's like trying to solve the problem. Like if you sprain your ankle, all of a sudden you have swelling, right? And it's because you're getting that signaling, the inflammation goes there to help it with fluid and to heal. If your body is constantly under this low-grade inflammation, imagine how tired that little army is that's trying to like protect you. Like it is so exhausting. So now we're getting sick easier, we're getting injured easier, recovery takes longer, we start developing all these food sensitivities. And so it becomes this like chaotic thing where it's like one thing leads to the next, and your doctor's like, no, it's diabetes. Here's this. And it's like, no, that's not the problem, because it's still going to be happening under the surface, which cool. Now you're not experiencing those symptoms anymore. However, the problem is still existing. And if that's not addressed, then it can lead to, thyroid issues. It can lead to certain types of cancers. It can lead to cardiovascular disease. And so you're just kind of putting a Band-Aid on it and ignoring it while it progresses to other things in your body. And so this is where I really like to teach women about like what actually makes us more insulin resistant. And poor sleep, not enough nutrition, fasting inappropriately, being in a low calorie state for too long drives up in like insulin resistance way more than sugars do. And people will argue and be like, well, you don't see people in like third world countries dealing with like weight gain from eating low calorie. It's like, yeah, because they're just there. They don't have this yo-yo of up and down, up and down, up and down all the time. Plus adding in all the processed foods that we typically have. It's just such a different environment, right? And so they're also not constantly stimulated all the time. Like they don't have cell phones and all this stuff that's just like constantly stimulating you. And so it's like naive to think that it's just one thing, even though that's what we've been told, because the whole body works as a whole and in tandem. It's not like a vending machine where you put in the money, you press the number and the thing pops out. It's this ecosystem of like, if half the mosquitoes disappeared, half the birds would die. And then if the birds die, like it's just this cycle, right? And so we have to get to the root cause of what's actually causing this to happen. And so then we have to remember too, like as estrogen declines, it's more likely we'll become insulin resistant. If testosterone declines, we become even more insulin resistant. If we have less muscle mass, we become even more insulin resistant. If we have a poor night's sleep, we become even more insulin resistant. And so it kind of becomes this multifactorial thing where it's not just one thing. It's like we really have to look at our lifestyle. And it sucks because like when you think about it, it's like we kind of did it to ourselves, which like sucks to hear. And like we do have to give ourselves grace because no one told us. Everyone told us it was donuts, right? So how are we supposed to know? Which is frustrating. And so I try to, teach people about it and, have the potato, because it's a lot easier to choose what your blood sugar is going to be based on what you eat versus being at the mercy of your lifestyle and being like, well, I didn't eat lunch today. Hopefully things worked out and I'm not too stressed out. My blood sugar is not going to spike, right? So using food as a tool to be able to control what that looks like, because it'll come up as you eat, maintain, slowly come down, and then come back up. And it's like this slow roll instead of this like erratic thing, up and down, up and down, up and down. If you think about it, when you have energy crashes, like we're irritable, we're exhausted, we can't focus. And I think about our kids and I'm like, this is why we have so much attention issues in children, is because, you give them Captain Crunch for breakfast, sugar high, drops at school, they can't pay attention, they have their fruit roll up for their snack. And like, it's this constant up and down, but no one's connecting all these dots of like, if we actually just like set things up at the beginning of the day, then we're not starting with this massive spike and drop. Like it's really hard to get off the roller coaster once it starts. And so if we can control things with our food, it makes it so much easier. Having enough energy from your carbohydrates, just make sure you have some protein and fat beforehand. Like if you want Oreos, okay, whatever, maybe you want Oreos, have some yogurt beforehand. That'll stabilize your blood sugar so much. If you're going to have, pasta, just have a side salad first. That'll help stabilize your blood sugars. If you can get veggies or protein first, that's what you should ask yourself at every meal. It's, how can I make this better? for my blood sugars, because that's going to set you up for success so much more than being like, I can't have it, I can't have it, I can't have it. And then you have all of it and then some, right? Because if you tell me I can't have ice cream, I'm going to have like 3 because that's just how my brain works. So that was a very long-winded question.
No, that was great. That was great. I mean, you made me understand it, so that was amazing. No, I love that. But besides that, does anyone have any questions going off of that?
Yeah, anything. I'm game for anything. I love this stuff. So
I'll have one more for you, but if anyone wants to come off mute before I ask it and ask a question that you have, go ahead and go. Arian, you're looking intent. It looks like you might have another question. All good? Okay. The next question that I have, because it's a very popular thing, I want to know your take on Ozempic or semaglutides and GLP-1s.
Yes. Okay. So very similar to HRT. I know lots of people who have gone on GLPs and have not had success or have felt really terrible, because your body has to be in a state where it can break it down, it can use it. And a lot of people struggle with liver detoxification already. Like, and just even in the world that we live in, we're living in a more toxic world. But also, if our body is constantly working to pump out sugar because of like the blood sugar instability and the fasting and the low calorie diets, because a lot of people that you see that go on it are people who do eat pretty low calorie, where they're like, I just don't know what to do anymore, right? And so what we're seeing is like their liver has been so busy trying to pump out sugar so that you can survive, that it's not detoxifying things in your body. And so we're seeing this increase in inflammation, right? And so there are lots of benefits to GLPs that we are seeing, right? Like it can help with inflammation, it can help with some things like that. There's all these other peptides that are really great, like to help with healing and things like that. But it's also the most widely abused thing right now. And I see it all the time already, where, we've had a person that was in coaching with us like 2 years ago, decided to go on it, left, did it for 1.5 years. She's like, I didn't really focus on working out. I didn't really pay attention to my diet. I just like ate when I was hungry. She's like, I got to my goal weight. I do not like the way I look. And I'm like, because you have lost so much muscle mass. And now she wants to come off of it. And I'm like, honestly, we need to stay on it, because if you come off of it and you rebound, like it's going to be a drastic rebound. So we need to come off of it slowly as we start getting all these pillars put in, because like you shouldn't have to be on it forever. Like that shouldn't be the plan, right? Because what if you can't get access to it? Then you're hooped, right? And we've seen that happen once already. And so this is where we really need to understand, is your body in a place where it can function? Because I've had people go on it with us for a short period of time just to help stabilize some stuff while I worked on the pillars, and then they came off of it and then we've been good, and then they lost weight naturally, right? So it's a tool that you can use, but it's not like this shortcut that people are using it for. And even like I've been to lots of seminars and trainings and events and stuff where GLPs is part of the education. And the biggest thing that any good practitioner or doctor will tell you is, if you are on it, the requirement is you have to eat adequate amount of protein. Like you have to. And you also have to be resistance training and like actually challenging yourself, where you can't lift too above the rep range that you're doing, because low muscle mass increases your rate of mortality, like your risk of mortality substantially. And so that's a bigger indicator than like body fat percentage, which is wild. And so this is where we need to be so mindful as to how it's affecting all the other systems in our body. Like, cool, we're losing weight, but is our body fat percentage actually different? Because I've seen people with the same body fat percentage because they're losing equal rate of muscle and fat. And so it's like, are you really healthier? Not really, right? And so we still need to make sure you're getting the nutrients that you need. Like we see a lot of nutrient depletion and deficiencies in people who have come off of it as well, because you get full so easily, right? And then people are in such high doses too, where they're just not hungry. And, they're not getting adequate amounts of antioxidants. They're not getting enough of all the vitamins and minerals that they need. And we need that for proper hormone production. We need that for our hair to grow. Like you hear all these stories of women's hair starting to fall out on their GLPs. And it's like, yeah, because you're not eating enough protein, which is what your hair is made of. You don't get enough zinc, you don't get enough vitamin D, all of these things that are important for you to consume for proper health. And, it can be a good tool if used appropriately under the right guidance. But your doctors don't even ask you how stressed are you? Are you sleeping enough? They're not gonna they're not asking you about all the other things, right? They're writing scripts. And so some doctors will, and they're great, right? But it's hard to find those. And so even at events that I've been at with doctors, they're like, if you're on this, you really should be working with some sort of trainer, health coach, whatever, that has some understanding of this so that it doesn't become a negative, right? Because just like dieting could be good, it can also be really detrimental. And so it's the same thing. And I think it's just been used really irresponsibly. So I'm not pro or con for it. It's very much, is it right for the person? And thinking down the road, 20, 30 years. That's my big thing is I will never coach someone in a way where you're more concerned about losing 10 pounds. Yes, I get you're uncomfortable now, you want to lose weight, but I'm not willing to risk what your quality of life looks like at 80, because we know 1 in 3 women end up in a nursing home. That's not going to be me. And it's not going to be anyone that I coach. That's not what we're doing. You don't want to be the grandma at a nursing home that your kids are having to bribe your grandkids to come visit, to play Uno once every 2 months, right? Where you get 30 minutes with your grandkids. You want to be the grandma that's at the soccer games, not watching the replays from the screen on Facebook. You want to be the grandma who gets asked to babysit. That's what you want. But so many people do this extreme route where they're losing so much muscle mass and they're putting themselves in a position where, you become so inflamed from all the stress and dieting and lack of sleep and lack of nutrients and all these things that becomes the perfect breeding ground for various chronic conditions. And, you have brittle bones, and we know if you break a hip, it takes 7 years off your life on average. It's crazy. So it's doing things the right way where 80-year-old you is living the life that you actually want to live. You want to be using your retirement money to travel, not to pay for a home. That's the realistic thing. And so that's something I drill into people a lot, because I'm you don't understand the gravity of the choices you make 30, 40, 50, what that looks like for you at 80, because you see 80-year-olds who are fit and doing the things, and you see 80-year-olds that I'm you're 110, this, you don't look good, right? And so that's so important. And that's where I don't love the coaching space a lot, because I don't think coaches realize how some of the extreme stuff they do with clients does affect them for 70, 80, 90. To me, I get so irritated. You've probably seen me at events where I'm just I'm just itching to say something to someone, because I'm dude, you have no idea the responsibility and the impact that we have on people's lives. And you might be pumped that you help that person lose 15 pounds. 80 is going to suck for them. And I'm more concerned with that. And even if it takes longer, it's not a money thing. It's I care about your life thing. And so that's I think a big overarching message that a lot of people need to understand, and where the risk with the GLPs does come in, unfortunately, that a lot of people just haven't quite grasped their heads around it. But
yeah, looking at it a lifelong kind of standpoint.
Yeah, because we're just we're so used to Amazon Prime. You order and it's legitimately at your door within 24 hours. Our bodies are the Sears catalog on steroids. You had to wait for the Sears catalog to come in the mail, and then you had to flip through it and then circle the thing that you wanted. Then you had to call over the phone and give them I want bathing suit AB whatever number, give them your credit card number over the phone, and then wait a month for it to show up in the mail. Our bodies work like that way more than order receive, but we're so used to that from social media and just the way the world is right now that it's so hard for us to think about the long game. We're just I don't want to be where I am right now. And so it's just really tough. It is really tough. And it's hard to wrap around, especially when you're emotional and you're I just want to be the way I was, and I just want to feel the way I did, and be that old version of me, and I want to feel strong again and fit again. And all of those things. And I'm not discounting that. Like, it's hard and I've been there and it sucks. And especially when your hormones are not where you want to be, you're not super rational half the time, right? Let's be honest. And so it's tough to have those conversations, and it's tough to, you know, be like, I get that it sucks right now, especially if you're like in tears and you're so frustrated, but it's 80 matters. Like 80 so matters, like so much. Like, you know, you think of people who've left this earth way too young, and it's like, man, I would do anything to make sure like my mom would have been here to like meet my kids or to babysit or whatever it would be, right? Or I see my friends' parents who are homes and grandparents who are in homes and the life that they're living, and it's like, oh man, like it just goes by so fast, and you wanna make sure that you can do this stuff for as long as you can, because I don't want to live life looking through a screen, even though we're all doing it half the time already anyways. So we're just scrolling on our phones, but you don't realize it until it's like almost too late sometimes. And so that was like, it sucked losing my mom young, but it was also the thing that has made me appreciate that stuff more and like push it so much more, because yeah, you don't realize it until it's like too late sometimes, which sucks. So yeah.
I love it, Stephanie. Gosh, thank you so much for this call.
Of course.
That was amazing. Does anyone have any questions or anything to say at all after just everything that we've talked about tonight? No. Okay.
I do have a podcast, so you guys can like,
yes,
honestly, yes. I've covered an episode on like high progesterone, low progesterone, high estrogen, low estrogen, sleep. We recorded one on like hair loss and stuff like that. We have so many things. I was going to say that, Stephanie.
So plug yourself right now. Tell them, because this will go to like 6 other women too, and I'm going to be posting it everywhere. So where can people find you? Like, what do you do? How can they best get to know you?
Yeah, so the Metabolism and Menopause podcast is our podcast. That's the best place if you want to get like information. I've worked really hard to try and keep episodes at 30 minutes, but every once in a while they do get to an hour. So I'm working to be a little bit more concise. And then also my social media. So Instagram is vitalityoet.stephanie. And then we do have a Facebook community as well, Metabolism and Menopause by Vitality, where we're always posting stuff, guides and things like that in there too. But you can always just message me on socials. I'm pretty active. I will say, like, sometimes it does take me a while to get back to people, because it is just me in the DMs, which people are like, I don't understand why you do that, but I like talking to people, as you can probably tell. But so if it does take, it might take me a while to get back to you, but I will always respond back. It just sometimes takes a bit with like travel and just, you know, a family and just a big following. Sometimes it takes time, but I love it, and I value all the questions and stuff that I get. So I'll always answer.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us tonight, Stephanie. I really appreciate you coming on here and speaking to all our members in our challenge. And I'm sure like if I have any questions that come up throughout the entire rest of the 21 days, I'll send them over to you.
Yeah, for sure.
But besides that, everyone, that's all we got for tonight. If you don't have any more questions, then I'll let you guys have a good rest of your night. I won't take any more time. Thank you for joining us. And if you're good, you guys are good to go.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Have a good night.